Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Wow, what a show today. You know, everybody reaches out to me at the DotCom Magazine show and they say, Jake, listen, we love it when you bring in financial experts. We love it when you bring people in that can talk about money and credit and investing. And I have somebody on the show today that I'm calling the king of credit. I mean, his name is Will Roundtree. You may have heard of him. He's the CEO or president and owner of We Management Services. And when we're talking about financial empowerment, I mean, Will is right in the middle of it. I mean, this is going to be a great show. We have so many questions, not only from our audience of people who have reached out to me and said, Jake, when you have a credit expert on the show, ask these questions. But I have so many questions, but let's just get right to it. Will, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure. Thank you for the invite. And I'm looking forward and I'm ready to have some fun.
I love it. We Management Services. I mean, when we talk about credit, I call you the king of credit. We talk about financial empowerment. You're one of the leaders in the space. Before we get started, let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet as we become very famous for throughout the world, and tell us about We Management Services from a high level.
Definitely. So We Management Services is a financial services company, but primarily on the education side. You know, you can go on the internet and pretty much research anything you need to know about money, credit, finances, banking, but nobody's really teaching you how credit works. Nobody teaches us how money works. Nobody educates us how to invest. And so I started my company essentially out of a personal need almost 12 years ago. I remember moving to Las Vegas, Nevada back in 2005. And prior to moving to Las Vegas, I was told by one of my mentors that eventually credit will become the new dollar. Didn't know what he meant by that at the time, but once I got to Las Vegas, I quickly found out. Try renting an apartment with bad credit. Try buying a vehicle with bad credit. And so they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And I kept getting the exact same results when I had bad credit trying to apply for these things recently new to Las Vegas. And so just took it upon myself to learn everything I can to improve that situation. Started really learning and understanding the power of what credit does, because I started to see it was the barometer really to our everyday living. Bad credit can stop you from getting a job that you want. Our insurance rates is tied to our credit scores. And so more and more, I started to see how credit was becoming an impacting factor. So I started to learn about it, saw the positive impacts on it. And really what was the light bulb was I was able to purchase a brand new vehicle with no money down after I had a great credit score. I'm like, wow, this was something that was so exciting. I said, I got to share this with as many people as I can. And so I didn't get into it initially for a business. I just wanted to share the good news, no different than me recommending a great movie. And so, but once I saw the need, I said, you know what, I don't want to be a credit repair guy. I want to actually educate people because, you know, understanding home ownership was declining. So people needed to have good credit to become homeowners. More and more people wanted to get into entrepreneurship. You know, having your credit is the bloodline to your business. So that's really how We Management birthed. And the WE is a double acronym, one for my first and middle initial. And then when I talk about we, it's more of a community. I do this for the community, for the people, because I know what it's done for me personally. And it's literally this information that literally has changed the trajectory of my entire family legacy. So I wanted to be able to share this information. And so that's pretty much how We Management Services has birthed.
Will, I love it so much. Some people say that credit is king, like one of the signs on your wall, but I call you the king of credit because you're a real trailblazer. I mean, when I think about it, I mean, your entire being, your entire why is to propel ordinary people to new financial heights. And I love that. So where did that come from? Where's that passion that you have to help so many people create financial independence come from? Because it's just remarkable.
No, thank you. I would say a lot of that came from me being an underdog or feeling like the underdog most of my life. You know, I was never picked first in the pickup basketball games. You know, I wasn't popular in school or anything like that. And so I always rooted for the underdogs. But when I was able to learn this information, I knew that there was, well, let me put it like this. I started to understand that information was one of the most expensive things that you can invest in. And also understanding once you get access to this information, it literally can change your life. And because I'm going to, just say that I think that credit has kind of been bastardized because we've been conditioned to look at it from a consumer standpoint and not knowing that there's a such thing as called structured debt and unstructured debt. Consumers, we've just been privy to understanding unstructured debt. That's where we go buy the house we can't afford. We buy the cars we can't afford. We use credit to go shopping. But then once I started to understand that wealthy people leverage credit for structured debt purposes, essentially meaning I can purchase an investment property leveraging my credit that's going to not only service the debt, but then also give me a return on my money. And so once I started to actually implement those practices, and it's something that I learned from basically studying Robert Kiyosaki and his principles, I said, I have to share this with other people because, one of the biggest issues that we've always dealt with since my existence as an adult is economics. There's always been economic issues. And I understood that helping people to understand credit and the power of it could be a major improvement on bettering our economics. And I'll give you a quick example. Typically, people who have bad credit, life is a little bit more expensive. You're putting more money down on deposits. Your APR and interest rates are higher on the money that you're borrowing. But then when you get in a financial jam, your only route is really payday loans. And understanding that you can borrow money cheaper when you have good credit, even if it's on a credit card, because here's the thing I teach people. Credit card is really just a tool in case of emergency. So if my hot water heater goes out and I need to borrow and I need access to $3,500, yeah, I may not have that in the bank. If I go to the payday loan store, that $3,500 may turn into $10,000. But at least if I can borrow it on a credit card, I may be able to get 0% interest for 18 months. And so really just reconditioning people to have a different value of how they view credit. And so I do it, like I say, for the people who may be less fortunate and may not have had access to this type of information.
Yeah, I love it so much, Will. And the people watching the show, rewind what Will just said. I mean, that's a Harvard MBA right there, what Will just gave you about the debt and how to take advantage of debt. And, one of your mentors, of course, is Robert Kiyosaki, the rich dad, poor dad. And, the rich dad teaches one thing to the son or daughter, and the poor dad teaches another thing. So listen, this is great. How do people engage with you? Because you have a process. I mean, you take them from the beginning and you teach them along the way. And, you understand that finances can be messy, especially when they come to you to begin with, but then you straighten them all out. So what's the process to work with you, Will, at the company? Because I'm sure there's so many people that are hearing this, that you're resonating for them in their mind, for their families, that, they're going to say to themselves, wow, we management, I need to get engaged here. What do they do to start talking to you, and what's the process look like?
Definitely. So believe it or not, a lot of people start by just finding me on the internet. It's interesting. I'm walking through airports throughout the country and people recognize me. They're like, hey, you're that YouTube guy that talks about credit. And so I have a very strong internet presence. But the initial intake process starts by literally going to my website, We Management Services. As I mentioned, WeManagementServices.com. As I also mentioned, I have a strong social media internet presence. So a lot of people follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. I have 2 videos that's went viral. I probably have over 3 million views accumulatively on YouTube, over 212,000 subscribers. And it's at Mr. Will Roundtree across the board. But when I initially sit down with someone, the very first thing that we talk about is, one, I will always ask them, what is their goal and what is their end goal? Because that's so important, because that's going to dictate the direction we need to take with them. But then more importantly, I often ask, or not what I ask, I have to find out where their mindset is at. See, people who follow me, they know I'm big on mindset, because you will never be successful at anything until you change the way you think. And the way you think also affects your attitude. And if you have a negative connotation on how money works, how debt works, maybe because, your parents or grandparents, indoctrinated you with, the negative stigmas of debt and credit, no matter what I can do for you, it won't be enough for me to help you overcome. Because here's the second part to that. You now have to change to become more financially disciplined. So when people say that credit cards are bad, it's not that credit cards are bad. It's that people are financially irresponsible. Usually people who are financially irresponsible with credit cards are usually financially irresponsible with their checking account, with their cash. So we have to now change their mindset and rewire them how they completely think about money, credit, debt, etc. So that's really my process. And I have a lot of different even programs where people can join in on a group level where we educate and teach people about the basics of these things.
I love it, Will. And of course, you touched on mindset. Mindset is so important, even with finances. I mean, if you have the wrong mindset, you're going to go spiral downward pretty fast, and people have this can't do attitude sometimes where they need a can do attitude. And one of the things that you become known for is you teach people this can do attitude. So let's talk about that. Where did that come from? Because you're one of the leaders in getting people going and telling them, yes, you can do this. Just follow the process, follow my system, and you'll get from point A to Z as long as you follow what we tell you to do. And it's a great process you have.
No, absolutely. So I tell people, when you're accustomed to losing, you get tired. You get tired of that. And so when I moved to Las Vegas, while I was going through that journey, I became homeless. And it wasn't because I had bad habits or anything like that. It was that I didn't know enough about enough. And I invested in myself to get to a certain point, and things don't always work out. But here's the thing that I learned and how I got that mindset. It all really started with me even before I went on this journey of entrepreneurship. I started to learn the power of personal development. And see, in that power of personal development, see, you become a millionaire mentally before you become a millionaire physically. And I had to, again, change my mindset. I had to change my attitude. I had to change my beliefs, which ultimately started to change my philosophies. And then my philosophies ultimately began to change my life. And so as I continued to go through this thing we call life, I started to learn that one of the biggest minorities out here are winners. Winners are minorities because, as you mentioned, there's so many people who feel they can't do something or they can't overcome those hurdles or obstacles. And I tell people, look, I moved to Las Vegas. I borrowed $500. I knew no one. I became homeless. I mean, I was living in my car, but I also knew that those things were temporary. And I just had to get access to new information, but then not just get the information, because I know a lot of smart people who are not where they want to be. I also had to execute that information. And so I just constantly reminded myself every single day, this is temporary. You can get there. You can do this. And so it really is just about surrounding myself around a positive sphere of influence. And a lot of that was through my mentors, which were audiobooks, which were, the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Zig Ziglars and the Jim Rohns and the Tony Robbins, because you may have to get rid of the negative Nancys and the negative Nates around you. So that's another reason why we have this can't do attitude, because we have people who tell us we can't do it. And I tell people you have to watch out for those individuals. I call them dream stealers. So I know that's the long version for your answer, but I think it's so important because it's not just one thing that helps you to change all of that.
I love it. And you said something that just resonated for me and is going to resonate for the audience, is that as you were going through, Will, your personal journey, you knew that you didn't know enough about enough. And that's so powerful. And, that's one of the things that you're changing with the people that watch you on, online and watch you on social and, engage with you in person and come to your seminars and, talk to you on the phone and on Zoom, is that you're a powerful leader in terms of teaching people enough. In other words, they don't know enough about enough, but now they're going to learn enough to know enough. So I guess that's kind of a funny way to say it. But Will, listen, you have a great journey. Okay. You're passionate. Now you've got this thing on your hat that says full-time CEO. You've got the shirt, full-time CEO. You've got it on your wall, full-time CEO. That must have some meaning to you. So let's talk about that, because that's a great way to sort of process things in terms of what you're doing at We Management Services.
Absolutely. So when I'm walking through the airports or I'm at different events and I'm wearing, my merchandise, people see it and they're like, wow, I want to become that one day. And I said, you can start that today. And they're like, how? And I'm like, because being a full-time CEO is a mindset. It's not just about working for yourself. It's just not about having your own business, because it starts mentally first. I knew I was a full-time CEO when I was sleeping in my car, and so that's really just a mantra I live by and I walk by, because here's the thing. I knew I was destined for greatness. I just didn't have my vehicle yet. But again, these are the affirmations I would tell myself every single day. These are the things that I would convey, because what the tongue speaks, it starts to manifest. So the whole brand of the full-time CEO is I did it more so, one, because that's the mindset I live by, but then two, I wanted to create a movement. Again, so many people feel left out of something. And so I actually even created a program with my full-time CEO program that wasn't about necessarily helping you to become a better boss or to become a better business owner. Now, there are principles in there that I teach about that, but I was teaching people life skills. Being a better CEO is about life skills, which changes your mindset. Do we take care of our bodies? Do we, pour into people? Do we treat people right? Are we focused on building and developing relationships? Because here's another kind of cheat code I tell people. Building a business is 80% relationship building. It's people building. And so all of that really encompasses what the full-time CEO movement and culture means to me.
I love it, Will. And of course, we've interviewed some of the, leading branding experts in the world on the show. We have a lot of people in branding and marketing that watch the show. And this full-time CEO brand, Will, that you've built is absolutely amazing. I mean, you just throw the hat on, you throw the T-shirt on, you walk through the airport, and all of a sudden, people want to come up and talk to you. They want to know you. And of course, you're a real relationship guy. So people coming up to you and they say, hey, Will, what's this first generation millionaire? What's this full-time CEO all about? I mean, you're just, a walking, talking branding machine as the king of credit that I call you. So it's really a great lesson for the people watching the show, what Will's doing with his We Management Services. I mean, it's so powerful. Now, Will, let's get back to the entrepreneurs right now. Listen, we've gotten to it. I mean, people that engage with you, they're going to learn the process. They're going to learn a lot. They don't know enough about enough, but after they talk to Will and get into your programs, they're going to know a lot. And they're going to learn about, how to take this credit and how to structure their debt properly, which you've talked about. And of course, and I know that their finances might be a little messy to start with, but you're there to help them clean it up. And those people that are passionate with that can-do attitude that you talk about, that aren't listening to those dream stealers that you talk about, they're the people that really are going to be the minority that you speak about, which are the successful people. And that's great. I love it. I mean, it just resonates for me. So let's talk about it. We have some younger entrepreneurs watching the show. They're hitting a roadblock right now. They're saying to themselves, well, Will was sleeping out of his car. I mean, if he can do it, I can do it. But let's give a little more positive thought to the people watching the show that are maybe saying to themselves, I can't do this. Let's give them a little of that famous Will Roundtree, expertise and motivation and thought about how they can become a can-do attitude person, because I think that's going to resonate for a lot of our viewers on the show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of my sayings that I say is that if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. And that's where it started for me. I knew I had to clean house of anybody who did not see my vision. And I understood they couldn't see it because it wasn't for them to see. A lot of people can't see something that they can't seize. And I had to understand that. Secondly, I had to be okay. And I recommend anybody else who's on this path to be okay with being alone. You know, we have to understand. And my second book is titled Full-Time CEO, The Things They Don't Tell You. The thing they don't tell you about entrepreneurship is that it's a lonely journey. It's hard, but also is being poor hard. Also is not knowing where your next meal is coming from hard. And so I tell people, pick your hard. I rather work hard on something that I know is going to be fulfilling for me. And so, but a lot of that started with, and this is something that I'm really big on, is investing in mentorship at any capacity. See, I had a mentor who taught me a long time ago. He was, and I was looking for him to be my mentor. And as he was telling me some of the things that I needed to do in order for him to pour back into me, in order for him to stop everything he's doing, for him to pour into little old me at this time, I told him, and I think it was like he wanted me to meet him at this convention. And I looked at him and I said, I can't afford to get there. And he said, Will, you can't afford not to be there. Because he said, he was like, you told me you were tired of living in your parents' basement. You told me you were tired of hiding your vehicle from the repo man. All of these things you're telling me, those should be the things that motivate you on how do you figure it out. So then what I started to do is he said, look at how much you spend frivolously on happy hour, eating out, Starbucks, and start to become a better steward of your money. And then start telling yourself, how can I afford this? And so for a lot of my entrepreneurs, a lot of times when it comes to mentorship or having to invest in getting an LLC or whatever your starting point is, we have to stop looking at everything as an expense and start understanding these are investments. How can you afford these things? Yes, there will be some sacrifice. I went without television for 5 years. And for one, I couldn't afford it. But for two, I didn't want anything clouding or polluting my mindset as I was on this journey. And not that there's anything wrong with television. That was just a sacrifice I was willing to make. I didn't travel for 3 to 5 years. I didn't hang out. I didn't go to lounges and nightclubs. And I didn't do all of the miscellaneous things that we tell ourselves, I deserve that because of how I'm feeling. I told myself, I deserve to be successful. I deserve to make a lot of money. I deserve to be in a position to give back. So if I have to take this 3 to 5 year window to sacrifice my leisure time, I'm willing to do that to create a lifetime of fulfillment, to be able to travel anywhere in the world I want to go, to be able to purchase any vehicle, to be able to retire my mother, to be able to buy her a vehicle, to be able to give back to my family. And so it's really just about sacrifice and how bad do you want it?
I love it. I mean, Will Roundtree for president. I mean, this is unbelievable. If you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. I mean, that's a great, great thing to say. And that's so powerful. I mean, I have to bring you back on the show, Will. I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time for me, but I'm bringing you back because we're going to talk about this whole idea. If you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. I love it. And we want to talk about the dream stealers and why you shouldn't listen to them and how to get that can-do attitude. And I know that you believe that one of the things in raising children today, one of the most important things you can teach children is to have a can-do attitude instead of a can't-do attitude. Will, this has been remarkable. I mean, I'm listening to you. I want to go to airports throughout the country just so I run into you and start talking to you with this shirt. I mean, it's fantastic. Will, this has been a great show. People reach out to Will. We're going to put all the links below and you can catch him on all of his channels. And, he's out there and he's hard not to find. Will, you are the king of credit. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. What you're doing for people is so powerful. You're an empowering person, so powerful to talk to you. And thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Oh man, a pleasure was all mine. Looking forward, and anytime, just let me know, and I'm there.